If there's a being that can do all things, he can do all things, the end. So making a statement like there's a being that can do all things, so the fact that he can do all things means that he cannot do this thing because this thing is supposed I don't even know how to make sense out of that. But what I'm trying to say is that if something has the ability to do all things, it can do all things. And even if some of those things seems like the things that someone would do if he doesn't have all the power to do all things, but it doesn't really matter because that also falls into the subset of things that an all-powerful being can actually do. So Alex O'Connor, in a recent debate, said something that was logically incoherent. Now, I've been following Alex O'Connor for a while, and I totally respect him, and one of the things I can say about him is that he's logically sound. It totally blew my mind that Alex, of all people, did not see this because it's one of those moments where you see great minds talk and they skip over some details that an average person could easily pick up. And that's where I found myself when I listened to him say these things. But first, we're going to listen to what Alex said so that we're all on the same page. And after that, I'm going to share my thoughts and I'm going to point out the contradictions in his statement.
You can imagine a deer on its own in a forest somewhere, having a tree fall over, crushing its leg, dying in confused starvation. And if I read a book in which all of the characters were suffering, and in fact suffering seemed to be the theme of the book, and that if you asked somebody who hadn't sort of read Christian literature and just gave them a history of the world, what word would come to their mind if you asked them to ask for the defining quality of human life? All they have is a history book of the things that human beings have done to each other. What word do you think they would pick? How many do you think they'd have to get through before they got to love? If that's the book that I was reading, I think it would be a more interesting book, but I wouldn't think that the author loves the character.
There's something he said that I found very interesting, which was the meaningless suffering of animals. I think he said the confused suffering of animals, something like that, I'm paraphrasing.
Dying in confused starvation.
Because to the best of our knowledge, animals are under the full sway of nature. So what that means is that animals don't act like they have a say in what is going on with them. So whatever happens to an animal, like if there's a wounded lion, the wounded lion doesn't try to find medicine to cure his injuries or whatever. It just goes about and hope he doesn't die. Like that's the state animals exist in. And it's really difficult to present a justification for that form of pain because that's just pain for the sake of pain. Now, the reason why I said this is to let you know that I understand his point of view. I understand that the very nature of existence has suffering and pain intertwined in like the fabric of reality. Like I really understand that. If that was the end of the story, Alex would have made total sense and he would have been 100% accurate from his analysis because the only common thing among human beings, animals, and nature itself is death, pain, destruction. Those are the most fundamental things about reality. That's just the fact. But the story doesn't end there. Think about the first man. So now, what actually motivated the first man to even attempt to create tools? Because I actually believe that the most accurate description of our existence so far is the evolution theory. So I'm really not a creationist. It's not that it's wrong, it's that the Bible didn't really give anybody a lot to work with. So there's no detailed analysis of what really happened. So like the most detailed description of what happened in the early universe is what we have from science. That's what I hold to be true. So now that being said, think about the first man. So now, what actually motivated the first man to even attempt to create tools? The best explanation that pushed the first man to be innovative in the first place was the fact that life is full of suffering. What that means is that life was very dangerous, or life is dangerous. It's not like it has changed now. Like if you go into the jungle right now, you know that life is still dangerous. So what pushed the first man to be innovative in the first place was the fact that life was dangerous. We had to do things that will make us survive because without innovation, I don't really see that humanity had any chance. Like we don't stand a chance against like a dog. If you come face to face with a Rottweiler, I don't really think that you survive that interaction. So that's how weak we are compared to other animals. So the only reason why we became innovative was just to be able to stand a chance, to be able to eat. And because the first men made that decision to become innovative, that is why we have a phone today. That's why we have planes today. That's why we have like this whole thing. Like that's why I can sit down here and be talking to you. And all these good things that we're enjoying today, healthcare, antibiotics, phones, and everything, all these good things that we're enjoying today is from the fact that suffering is the nature of existence. Now, putting all these things into consideration, we can tell this story, like the story that Alex told, we can tell that whole story again. So now imagine that you're reading a book, and that book is talking about a society, and in that society there's death, there's suffering, there's pain, there's all these things wrong with it. But it turns out that in the midst of all that chaos, there's also that option that humanity can actually use those stuff to bring out the best in themselves. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because in the final analysis, nobody really knows what love is in the final analysis. Let me give you an example, because if you say you love your friend, like your best friend, and your best friend decides he wants to do crack. So now, what are you going to do there? Would you let him do whatever he likes? Or would you hurt his feeling by telling him the truth and telling him the dangers of what he's trying to do? What I'm trying to say is that love has a very weird relationship with hurt. Sometimes an expression of love is to let someone feel pain so that he makes a better decision for himself. The only time that what Alex said can be true is if we live in a universe that there is no relationship between pain and love, and that what we call love or what we call expressions of love is only the things that make us feel good always, all the time. But that's definitely not the case. In as much as we can all agree that life is full of suffering and like nature itself is full of death and pain, but then you can also make the case that the only reason why we have all the things that we enjoy about life is because of that very fact. So you can't really say that the fact that it's full of pain and suffering is a bad thing because of all the good things that came out of it. The fact that we don't have any other universe to compare and contrast with makes pointing out the flaws in this universe like silly.
Maybe that's what you'd expect. But of course the problem with all these things is we don't have all that many universes to compare ours with. You know, we're not sitting here with a range of imaginable universes and saying, well, on balance, that's how things ought to work.
This actually brings me to the second point I was trying to make, which is something a panel member said during the debate.
Consider, for example, the hypothesis of a God of limited power. A God who's made the best universe they can. Maybe God simply can't create complex life in an instant. Maybe the only way God can create intelligent life is by creating a universe with the right physics that is eventually going to evolve intelligent life. And God's like, I'm sorry, I know it's going to be messy. This is all I can do. Is this or nothing?
So by definition, God is a being that can do all things. Like he has all the power and all the resources to do anything he wants. And what he's describing to be like a fault in that analysis is actually something that can be done. I don't know if that makes sense. So what you're trying to say is that there's a being somewhere that can do anything. So if anything happens, he can do it too. I don't know if that makes sense. The fact that from what we can observe, it seems that God is constrained by the laws of physics and the laws of chemistry doesn't really mean anything, because if he's someone that can do everything, he can also work under constraints. Like, it's as simple as that. So the statement itself is wrong. Like, if there's a being that can do all things, he can do all things, the end. So making a statement like, there's a being that can do all things, so the fact that he can do all things means that he cannot do this thing because this thing is supposed like, I don't even know how to make sense out of that. But what I'm trying to say is that if something has the ability to do all things, it can do all things. And even if some of those things seems like the things that someone would do if he doesn't have all the power to do all things, but it doesn't really matter because that also falls into the subset of things that an all-powerful being can actually do. If you've made it this far in this video, I actually really appreciate your time, and I really hope you consider liking and subscribing. And also, if you disagree with me or you have something else to tell me or whatever the case may be, let me know in the comment section. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.